Welcome back, everybody. This is Ayad Boudiab. I'm a senior application developer and technical trainer. We are continuing our discussion of AngularJS and specifically directives. There are a few things that I'd like to talk about in this lesson. One thing is basically to introduce the ng class, even ng class odd, just for brief discussion to see how we can use those with the ng repeat. And then I would like to talk a little bit about events. So we can see how we can handle events such as mouse enter, mouse leave, and the ng click, and so on. One thing that you need to know about AngularJS is that a lot of those events that you normally use heavily in JavaScript, there are a lot of things handled behind the scene for you in Angular, so you don't see yourself using these events a lot, but you still need them, as we will see in this lesson. So let's go ahead and get started first and making sure that we add our references to the top of the page. We have the script that contains the AngularJS file, and we have the bootstrap files that you've seen before. And the other thing is I'd like to add a script in there that just gives me the array and stuff that I need. I've been using this in previous lessons, so that should be very familiar to you by now. Let's go ahead and place those right under here. And this is the array, and then we need to make sure that we close this properly. So the first thing that we need to close is the bracket, and then close the parenthesis, semicolon, and then over here we need to make sure that our scripts folder is closed. That close script closes script, right? And then we need to make sure that the closing of the function is appropriate. You see that that's underlined here, it's underlined there, right? And the parenthesis is closed as well. So we added the controller, and then we also added the books array to the scope. So now I have a directive app and a basic controller, and I added the array to the scope. I need to go back to the top of the page before we forget this, and we make sure that we have the ng app being added in there. So I have in here the directive app that you see here. So this is the module, right? And then we added the controller, and now we're set to go as far as this controller is concerned. When we go down to the body of the page, we need to make sure that we're using the controller that we're interested in. Right now the div has the ID book panel, the class is panel, and I need to make sure that my ng controller is being added. Note up here the controller is basic controller, and we reference that here. Now the div has access to that books array that you see here because we just added the controller to the top. And the h3 contains the header. Let's remove this one for a minute right now so we can be working with what we have so far. So right now then I have the div. Let's go ahead and add the rest of the elements that I'm interested in. First of all, I need to make sure that I have the table that I need. So inside that div here, I'd like to add the table, and let's do that. So we have table, and we have the class that we're using for this is also table. That's from the bootstrap, and we make sure that we close the table like we've done below. I need to add the header information. This is similar to what we've done before. In this case of the header, I have the ID, which comes from the index. That's the variable that comes from ng repeat, and then the name, the page count, and the red property that come from the name, page count, and red that we've seen here from the array. Alright, so now I have the header information. Let's go ahead and add the body for this table. So tBody. Inside the body, I'd like to add the row and the columns that I'm interested in. So for now, I will go with the tr, and I'm going to use the ng repeat, right? So ng repeat, make sure I spelled that correctly. equals, and then I need to select the book in books, right? Okay, and then I'm going to close that for now. And then I'm going to add the TDs that I need. So inside here are the TDs. I have the index +1 for the index, and then I have the name, the page count, and the red property like I mentioned to you before. Go ahead and save this, and let's see if we have a page going for now. And we do. We have the actual array, and then we loop over that using the ng repeat, and then as you see we display the ID, the name, the page count, and the red in the table. So far so good. Then this is and again, so if you have watched the previous videos that we have talked about, then this is no news to you, right? You've done this before. Now one thing in here that I come over to the row, and let's see what else we can do. Now I told you at the beginning of the lesson that I need to talk about the ng class, and specifically the ng class even and odd. But one thing that I'd like to add first is the style on the top of the page. So let's scroll up here, and under the script, still in the header, I'm going to drop some styles. These styles are odd, even, and highlight. I will show you why I need highlight later, but for now they are straightforward CSS. With the class odd, I'm setting the background color to light blue. With the class even, I'm setting that to light green. With the highlight, I'm setting that to yellow. Okay, so these are the styles. Again, they are on the top, they're in the head section of the page. Let's scroll down here, and let's go back to the TR that contains the ng repeat. In this case, I'd like to add ng class even equals, and also I'd like to add ng class odd equals. Okay, so then that's supported, by the way, in Angular, and the ng class even, as the name implies, means for the even rows, and then the ng class odd is for the odd ones, right? So you don't have to decide yourself like we've done before using the index. You don't have to decide, well, am I looking at an even row or am I looking at an odd row? You don't need to do that. You just can have the ng class even, ng class odd specified, and it will take care of it for you. But as you can see up here, we already discussed that we have an even class and an odd class. We come down here and we make sure that we add even and odd, but make sure that you have even and odd in single quotes like you see here in order for this to work properly. So even and then odd here. So now I associated the even CSS class with the ng class even, and the odd CSS class with the ng class odd. Okay, let's go back to the page and reload that, and I can see that I have the blues and the greens come back like we've done before, right? But in this case, we've used them by applying the ng class even and ng class odd like you see here. Okay, now let's do another thing right now. Let's go back and see what else we can do as far as the events are concerned. So for now, let's go back to the top of the page. You'll notice in here that I have the array being added, right? This is wrapped up here. So inside the controller, when I'm creating the controller, the basic controller, and I'm adding things to the scope, let's take advantage of that and add some other things to the scope. First of all, $scope dot, I'm going to create a function that says handle event. Okay, that function handle event is a function, and that's how we specify that in JavaScript, and it takes e as a parameter, and then here's the body for this function. this function is going to benefit from the console that we have, console.log, and we'll see where that is. And then I'm going to specify in here that my event type would be, I'm going to ask E to give me its type. So E.type would be the type of event that I'm going to write to the log. That's what this function does. And then down here, I'm going to add some more scope. So I'm going to say scope dot data. I'm going to add some data to the scope, and that will be equal to, and in this case I'm going to add a selected, and that's so far is empty. Okay, and again I will show you why I need that when I write some more code down in the body. So for now I have a function called handle event that just writes something to the console, which is the type of event it's going to write. Another thing called scope.data, which just has a selected property which has nothing in it right now. So if I go down to the rest of the code, let's see what else we can do. Let's scroll down here, and for now, for the ng class even, ng class odd, I don't need those anymore. Okay, I'm going to take those out, and I'm going to add some more information. So in this case, I'm going to bring back the even ng class even, but in this case I'm going to make it equal to data dot selected. What is data dot selected? It's the one that you see here, right? Right now this is empty. Okay, so there's no class associated with that, and this one in here is empty, so it's not going to do anything, right? So let's go back to the page, reload. Nothing happening, right? Just an empty table. I mean, it contains data, but as far as highlighting and all that, there's nothing going on for the ng class even ng that I'm interested in. So far then I have the data that's selected here, and I'm also going to add a couple of things. Remember when I added the function here, handle event? Let's see how we can benefit from that inside the TR. So I'm going to say ng mouse enter, should we spell that correctly, mouse enter equals, and in here I'm going to say when we have a mouse enter, I'm going to ask you to handle the event, but I'm going to pass you some information in this case. The information that I'm going to pass you is the event that comes from Angular. Remember that that's the $, right? So it knows what event it is, and then I'm going to pass that to you so you can handle it for me when there is a mouse enter. I'm going to ask you for the same thing when we have the mouse leave event, right? So for the mouse leave equal the same thing. Let's take this one over here, copy it, and paste it down here. So we have right now the mouse enter and the mouse leave being handled by the handle event, and it takes the event as a parameter, that's what the E represent up here. From that E, I can ask E to give me its type, and I'm going to log that to the console. Okay, so that takes care of the mouse enter and mouse leave. Now how about down here, if we go ahead and after the table, let's add an HR here, and then I'm going to add a div that contains a button. So let's do that. Div, and then the div in here contains a button, and that button has a class equal, and let's select in this case btn. This is the class that comes from Bootstrap, and also let's add btn info. That's another info class that comes from Bootstrap. It has info, it has error, it has warning, things like that. But for now, I'm only interested in the btn info. If you need more information, you can look that up on Bootstrap website. But when the user clicks on that button, I'm going to support the ng-click event. For the ng-click event, I'm going to say that data.selected equals, and I'm going to give it the highlight class. So now should be able to start putting things together, right? When the user clicks on that button, I'm going to set data.selected to the highlight class. Where does the highlight class come from? It's right here, right? Okay, so if it sets that selected to that value, then the data.selected would be that highlight. So the ng class even will take that highlight class and highlights the even rows for me using that yellow color that you see up here. So now then I created that button. I need to make sure that I wrap this properly. So in here I'm going to say slash button to close it, and I'm going to say something like highlight the books. Okay, highlight, since this one says I'm using the ng class even, highlight the even books. Okay, let's go ahead and save that, and let's go back to the page, reload, and I see the button over here which has the info class associated with it, as you see it with this color. Now if I click on this button, I see that the even one's being highlighted with yellow like it promised me. Okay, now the other thing is I want to test the mouse enter, mouse leave events that you see here. Well, how can I test this? The function is writing things to the log, right? I can go back here. I can minimize the size of the window, go to Tools, Developer Tools, or F12 for short, right? You can always do that. Now I can see my file being here. This is the file that I'm working with. You see the code that I have, right? And then you see my event being here. This is the event handle event, right? This is the console.log. I'm going to go to that line 20, and before I do so though, let's scroll down a little bit here, and you notice, look at the line, look what's going on over here. You don't see it as much, but notice that it's a lot of scrolling going on, right? Okay, so every time I hover over those mouse enter, mouse leave, you see that the event is taking place. You see that? It's always happening as I hover over the rows. Now I can do something else though. I can just click on this line 20 here, which is going to give me a breakpoint, right, inside the function. I can just reload, right, or just step over and then run it all the way, and then now it comes back. It's inside the function. I can hover over E. It gives me all the information that I need about E. So you don't have to go wonder what does E have, right? You can always depend on the developer tools to give you all that information. And if I scroll all the way down, you would see the type that I was talking about. So the type then in this case is mouse over, right? And that's why down here you see the mouse over and the mouse out being displayed. Okay, so this is very handy for you. You can always rely on the developer tools to get that work done for you. When you're done with this, you can uncheck the breakpoint and run it all the way, and now you have the page completely displayed, right? So this is how simply we can work with events using AngularJS, and how I can depend on the developer tools to help me debug the actual code and see what's exactly going on. So now to wrap up, we learned about the events, mouse enter, mouse leave. We learn how we can use ng-click, and also we learned about the ng class even, ng class odd, that are part of the ng repeat in this case, that help me select some classes for the data I'm displaying. I hope this video has been helpful to you. I'm going to proceed with the rest of the discussion on AngularJS. Thank you very much for listening. I'm Ayad Boudiab, and you take care.